This ain't away customers. This ain't a shelter, buddy.
I'm just reading my Bible and I know my rights, sir.
Rights? You think you got rights with pocket change and that stinky jacket?
Officer, this is harassment and racism. Plain and simple. You're going to regret this.
Yeah, buddy, we'll see about that.
The video begins abruptly. No build-up, no explanation. Just a shaky phone recording of a black man standing quietly on a public sidewalk, Bible in his hands, and an officer already in his face. The cop's tone is sharp, hostile, dripping with contempt from the very first breath. The man, Elijah, doesn't move, doesn't raise his voice. He simply holds his worn Bible against his chest, its edges frayed from years of use. Then it happens. A sudden lunge. The officer tears the Bible from Elijah's hands, pages scattering across the concrete like wounded birds. Gasps erupt from bystanders. Phones rise. Everything is recorded. This single moment, this violent destruction of a sacred object didn't just spark outrage. It triggered national protests, flooded social media timelines, and ignited a $16 million federal lawsuit that would expose deliberate, malicious abuse of power. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light. But what exactly led to this Bible being ripped from Elijah's hands? And what did the officer never expect hundreds of witnesses to capture? Seattle, Washington, Pike Street, 3 blocks from Pike Place Market, 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday in October. Temperature 54 degrees, overcast sky, steady foot traffic. Storefronts lined both sides. Coffee shops, bookstores, souvenir stands. The kind of urban sidewalk where dozens of people pass every minute. Elijah Thompson sat on a public bench reading his Bible. He was 52 years old, a community outreach coordinator for a local nonprofit serving homeless youth. He'd worked there for 8 years, known throughout the neighborhood as someone who listened without judgment, who offered help without conditions, who treated every person with dignity. He wasn't homeless himself. He lived in a modest apartment with his wife of 27 years. But his work brought him into daily contact with people experiencing homelessness, and over time he'd adopted practical clothing: worn jeans, a secondhand jacket with frayed cuffs, comfortable walking shoes, clothes suitable for unpredictable work. That afternoon, he'd taken his lunch break on Pike Street, as he often did. The bench provided good visibility. People who needed help knew where to find him. He'd purchased a sandwich from a nearby deli and settled in to read scripture while he ate. His Bible was a King James version he'd received as a teenager, more than 35 years old. Its black leather cover was cracked and worn smooth from countless readings. Pages were dog-eared, underlined, annotated with decades of thoughts and prayers. It wasn't just a book, it was a spiritual companion that had traveled with him through every significant moment of his adult life. Officer Craig Mitchell had been with the Seattle Police Department for 6 years. His assignment was downtown patrol, specifically Pike Street Commercial Corridor enforcement. His job was maintaining business-friendly environments by addressing behaviors merchants complained about: aggressive panhandling, public intoxication, obstruction. But Mitchell's interpretation of that mandate had generated complaints. 7 formal grievances in 6 years, all involving confrontations with people he'd assumed were homeless, all involving aggressive enforcement of minor infractions or invented violations, and all involving people of color. That afternoon, Mitchell received a call from a boutique clothing store manager. The complaint: "There's a homeless man sitting on the bench outside my shop. He's been there over an hour. Customers are uncomfortable. Can you move him along?" Mitchell responded within minutes. He approached the bench with assumptions already formed: homeless, loitering, probably panhandling, definitely a problem needing removal. The cell phone footage, recorded by a college student walking by, captured Mitchell's approach. His body language was aggressive from the start. No greeting, no question about whether assistance was needed, just immediate confrontation. Elijah looked up from his Bible as Mitchell's shadow fell across the pages. "You're scaring away customers. This ain't shelter, buddy." Elijah's response was calm. his voice carrying the patient tone of someone accustomed to de-escalating tense situations. "I'm just reading my Bible, and I know my rights, sir." Mitchell stepped closer, his voice dripping with mockery. "Rights? You think you got rights with pocket change and that stinky jacket?" The cell phone footage captured Elijah's face clearly. No anger, no aggression, just weary recognition of what was happening. Another encounter with authority that saw his appearance and made assumptions about his worth.
Elijah stood slowly, deliberately, his Bible held against his chest. He was shorter than Mitchell, slighter in build, no physical threat whatsoever, but his voice carried quiet strength. "Officer, this is harassment. This is racism. You're going to regret this." Mitchell's face flushed red. The cell phone footage captured his expression perfectly. Rage at being challenged, fury at having his authority questioned. "Yeah, we'll see about that." What happened next was captured from 4 different angles. The college student's phone, a security camera from the boutique, a tourist's camera filming the street scene, and Mitchell's own Bodycam. Mitchell lunged forward and ripped the Bible from Elijah's hands with violent force. The sudden movement was so aggressive that Elijah stumbled backward. The Bible, held together by decades of wear and fragile binding, came apart in Mitchell's grip. Pages scattered. Loose sheets of annotated scripture drifted across the concrete sidewalk like wounded birds. The leather cover dangled from Mitchell's hand, separated from its spine. Decades of spiritual documentation, personal notes, family history documented in margins, all torn, scattered, destroyed. The gasps were audible on every recording. Bystanders froze. Someone shouted, "What are you doing?" Another voice, "That's his Bible. You can't do that." Phones rose immediately. Within seconds, a dozen people were recording. Elisha dropped to his knees, reaching for the scattered pages with shaking hands. His face showed pure anguish, not for himself, but for the sacred object that had been violated. Mitchell grabbed Elijah's shoulder and yanked him backward. "Get up! You're under arrest." "For what?" Elijah's voice broke. "Reading scripture? Resisting lawful commands, trespassing, obstructing public access." Every charge was false. The bench was public property. Elijah had committed no violation, and the only resistance came after Mitchell destroyed his Bible. But Mitchell forced Elijah's arms behind his back anyway, applying handcuffs with excessive force. "Stop resisting!" The cell phone footage showed clearly. Elijah wasn't resisting. He was crying, tears streaming down his face as he watched strangers gathering pages of his Bible from the sidewalk, trying to preserve what Mitchell had destroyed. "I'm not resisting. Please, just let me get my Bible." Mitchell shoved him toward the patrol car, Bible pages crunching under their feet. The tourist's video captured Mitchell's face in profile. He was smirking. The crowd grew. Voices rose. Someone yelled, "This is police brutality." Another, "He didn't do anything wrong." A woman in business attire stepped forward, holding her phone high. "I'm recording this. Everyone is recording this." Mitchell paused, his head swiveling to take in the crowd. Phones everywhere, cameras capturing every angle, witnesses documenting everything. And in that moment, captured clearly on multiple recordings, his smirk disappeared, replaced by realization that he'd made a catastrophic mistake. What would you have done if you witnessed this officer rip a Bible out of someone's hands on a public sidewalk?
The first video hit TikTok at 2:47 p.m., 17 minutes after Mitchell ripped the Bible from Elijah's hands. The caption? "Seattle cop destroys black man's Bible for reading on public bench. This is America." Within an hour, 50,000 views. Within 3 hours, 500,000. By evening, 2 million. The algorithm favored outrage, and this video delivered it. Clear injustice, obvious abuse of power, visceral violation of something sacred. Twitter erupted simultaneously. The hashtag BibleRipped began trending at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. By 6 p.m., #1 trend nationwide. By 8 p.m., 3.5 million tweets. The responses came in waves. Faith leaders of every denomination condemned the act. Destroying someone's Bible is an assault on religious freedom, tweeted a prominent evangelical pastor with 2 million followers. A Catholic bishop called it unconscionable desecration. Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, and Buddhist leaders issued solidarity statements, recognizing destruction of sacred text as an assault transcending denomination. Civil rights organizations mobilized immediately. The ACLU Washington chapter issued a statement within 3 hours. This incident represents multiple constitutional violations: First Amendment religious freedom, Fourth Amendment unlawful seizure, 14th Amendment equal protection. We are investigating potential legal action. The Seattle Police Department's initial response was tone-deaf and defensive. At 5:30 p.m., their official Twitter posted, "We are aware of video circulating online. The incident is under review." The officer followed standard protocol for addressing trespassing violations. The backlash was immediate and furious. Standard protocol includes destroying religious texts? Comments flooded in by the thousands, all expressing disbelief and anger. But it was the human story, Elijah's story, that transformed outrage into movement. By Thursday evening, local news had identified Elijah and begun reporting his background. He wasn't homeless. He was a community outreach coordinator. He'd spent 8 years serving Seattle's most vulnerable populations. He was known, respected, loved in the neighborhoods where he worked. King 5 News ran a segment featuring interviews with people who knew him. A young woman, now employed and housed, described how Elijah had helped her escape sex trafficking. "He gave me his coat when I was freezing. He found me shelter. He treated me like a human being when everyone else looked through me. And this cop treated him like garbage." A pastor at Pike Street Church, where Elijah volunteered, described the Bible that had been destroyed. "That Bible was older than most people in my congregation. Elijah brought it to every Bible study. He'd show us notes his mother wrote in the margins before she passed. That wasn't just a book. It was his family history." Photos emerged of Elijah teaching Bible study to homeless youth, leading prayer circles in shelters, handing out meals while carrying that same worn Bible. Every image reinforced the same message. This wasn't a random person harassed by police. This was a pillar of the community, targeted because an officer saw his appearance and made assumptions based on bias. By Friday morning, the story had gone national. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all running segments. The Atlantic published an essay, "When Police Destroy Sacred Objects: The Elijah Thompson Case and Religious Freedom Under Color of Law." Seattle City Hall faced growing pressure. The mayor's office released a statement Friday afternoon. "The incident involving Mr. Thompson is deeply troubling. We have launched a full investigation and are committed to accountability." But accountability seemed unlikely when Friday evening the Seattle Police Officers Guild released their own statement defending Mitchell. Officer Mitchell responded to a legitimate business complaint and acted within his authority to address trespassing. The use of force was minimal and appropriate. That statement, defending the destruction of a Bible and false arrest of someone committing no crime, ignited a new wave of fury. Protests were organized for Saturday. Faith leaders called for mass demonstrations. Community organizations mobilized. And then, Friday night at 11:47 p.m., attorney Benjamin Crump announced on Twitter that his firm would represent Elijah Thompson in a federal civil rights lawsuit. Crump, known for representing families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, brought instant credibility and national attention. His statement was unequivocal. What happened to Elijah Thompson was not just an unlawful arrest. It was a spiritual violation. It was a racist assault disguised as law enforcement, and it will not be unanswered. We are filing a federal lawsuit seeking accountability and justice. The lawsuit would be filed Monday morning. The amount? $16 million.
Do you think the officer ripped the Bible out of anger or out of racial bias? Saturday morning, as thousands gathered for protests outside Seattle Police Headquarters, new footage emerged that transformed the narrative from outrageous to damning. A security camera from a building across the street had captured the entire encounter from an elevated angle. The footage, obtained by local news through public records request, showed details the street-level cell phone videos had missed. It showed Mitchell approaching while Elijah was clearly reading, not panhandling, not harassing anyone, just sitting peacefully. It showed Mitchell's aggressive posture from the first moment. No attempt at de-escalation, no professional inquiry, just immediate confrontation. And it showed something that made every viewer's stomach turn. After ripping the Bible from Elijah's hands, after pages had scattered across the sidewalk, Mitchell stepped deliberately on several pages while forcing Elijah toward the patrol car. Not accidentally, deliberately. His boot came down on scripture with obvious intention. The footage went viral within hours. The symbolism was inescapable. An officer literally trampling sacred text while arresting someone for reading it. But there was more. A bystander filming from inside the boutique captured audio the outdoor recordings had missed. As Mitchell handcuffed Elijah, he'd muttered, barely audible but caught clearly, "Should have stayed in your own neighborhood." The racial animus was explicit, undeniable. Mitchell hadn't just seen someone he assumed was homeless. He'd seen a black man in a commercial area he believed black people didn't belong in. Then came the whistleblower. Saturday afternoon, a Seattle PD patrol officer named Marcus Rivera contacted Benjamin Crum's office. Rivera had worked with Mitchell for 3 years, and he had stories. Rivera provided documentation, incident reports, internal communications, witness statements, showing Mitchell had a pattern of targeting black people in commercial districts. 7 documented incidents over 4 years. Black woman waiting for bus, accused of loitering with intent to solicit. No solicitation occurred. Charges dropped. Black teenager with skateboard, accused of intimidating customers. Video showed he was standing quietly. Charges dropped. Black man in business suit, accused of suspicious activity. He was a hotel guest checking his phone. Complaint filed, dismissed. Black elderly woman with shopping bags, accused of obstruction. She was waiting for her daughter. Charges dropped. Black college student studying on bench, accused of trespassing. Public property. Charges dropped. Black delivery driver accused of casing vehicles. He was checking addresses. Charges dropped. And finally, Elijah Thompson, reading Bible on public bench, Bible destroyed, arrested for resisting. The pattern was unmistakable. Mitchell specifically targeted black people in commercial areas, inventing violations to justify removals, escalating when challenged. Every case resulted in dropped charges because no actual violations occurred. Rivera's whistleblower statement included internal communications showing supervisors were aware of complaints, but took no action beyond perfunctory retraining notes. An email from March 2021 showed a sergeant responding to a complaint about Mitchell. Mitchell's enforcement approach is aggressive but effective at maintaining business district appearance standards. Continue monitoring, but no discipline warranted. Translation: we know he's profiling, but businesses like it, so we're allowing it. The Seattle Times obtained these documents Sunday morning and ran a front-page investigation. Officer who destroyed Bible had pattern of targeting black people. Supervisors knew and did nothing. By Sunday afternoon, the scope of liability had expanded exponentially. This wasn't just about one incident. This was institutional tolerance of discriminatory enforcement. This was supervisory failure. This was systemic racism enabled by policy. Constitutional law professor Amanda Chen was interviewed by CNN Sunday evening. She broke down the violations. First Amendment: destroying religious text violates free exercise of religion. Fourth Amendment: seizing and destroying personal property without cause violates protection against unreasonable seizure. 14th Amendment: targeting based on race violates equal protection. Beyond that, malicious destruction of property, false arrest, intentional infliction of emotional distress. This is textbook constitutional violation across multiple amendments. Faith leaders held a prayer vigil Sunday evening at the bench where Elijah had been arrested. Thousands attended. Religious leaders from 20 faith traditions spoke. Jewish rabbis stood beside Muslim imams, beside Christian pastors, beside Buddhist monks. The message was unified. Destroying sacred text is an assault on all faiths. Elijah attended the vigil. He was presented with scattered pages witnesses had collected and preserved. A professional book conservator had volunteered to attempt restoration. Elijah wept as he held the fragments. His statement was brief and powerful. That Bible traveled with me for 35 years. It held my mother's handwritten notes. It carried my family's prayers across decades. Officer Mitchell didn't just tear pages. He tore my history, my faith, my connection to everyone I've loved and lost. No amount of money will restore what was destroyed, but accountability, that can prevent the next person from experiencing what I experienced. What shocked you the most? The ripping of the Bible or the smirk cut on video afterward? Monday morning at 9 a.m., Benjamin Crump stood at a podium outside the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington. Behind him stood Elijah Thompson, his wife Sarah, their pastor, representatives from the ACLU, the NAACP, the National Council of Churches, and the Interfaith Alliance. Crump held up the federal lawsuit, 73 pages of claims, evidence, and demands for accountability. Today, we are filing a $16 million federal civil rights lawsuit against Officer Craig Mitchell, his supervisors who enabled his behavior, and the city of Seattle. This lawsuit addresses not just the destruction of Elijah Thompson's Bible, but a pattern of racist enforcement that has terrorized black citizens in this city for years. The lawsuit named 6 defendants: Officer Craig Mitchell, Sergeant David Walsh, Lieutenant Rebecca Mills, Captain Thomas Rivera, Police Chief Adrian Diaz, and the City of Seattle. The legal claims were comprehensive: violation of First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, 14th Amendment rights, malicious destruction of property, false arrest, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent supervision, and municipal liability for deliberate indifference to constitutional violations.
But the evidence section was devastating. Video from 7 angles, audio recordings, witness statements from 43 people, Mitchell's complete disciplinary history, internal department communications showing awareness of his pattern, expert testimony on religious freedom and constitutional law, psychological evaluation of Elijah documenting trauma. The damages demand broke down specifically: $2 million for destruction of irreplaceable religious property with sentimental value, $3 million for emotional distress and psychological harm, $5 million for violation of civil rights under color of law, $6 million in punitive damages to punish deliberate misconduct. The Seattle City Attorney's Office issued a response Monday afternoon. We take these allegations seriously and are reviewing the complaint. However, we believe the claims mischaracterize the incident. We intend to defend vigorously. That defense would collapse within weeks. Discovery requests flooded the department. Every email about Mitchell, every complaint, every training record, every internal memo discussing enforcement strategies in commercial districts. What emerged painted a picture of deliberate policy. In 2019, the Seattle Downtown Association, a business advocacy group, had lobbied the mayor and police chief to increase quality of life enforcement in commercial areas. Translated, removing homeless people and others deemed bad for business. Internal police memos showed commanders directing officers to be proactive about appearance management and maintaining business-friendly environments. Officers were told to move along people who don't appear to be shopping or conducting legitimate business. One training document in 2020 included photos of behaviors to address,
and every single photo showed a person of color sitting, standing, or existing in public space. Mitchell had been following policy. The problem was, the policy itself was discriminatory. Depositions began in January. Mitchell's deposition was a disaster for the defense. Under oath, he couldn't explain why he'd assumed Elijah was homeless. He couldn't identify what specific law Elijah violated. He couldn't justify destroying the Bible except to say, I needed to move him along. When asked why he'd stepped on Bible pages, Mitchell claimed accident, but video showed deliberate movement. When asked about the stay in your own neighborhood comment, Mitchell denied it, but audio proved he had. When asked about his pattern targeting black people, Mitchell claimed he didn't see race. But his records showed 86% of his quality of life stops involved people of color in a city that was 67% white.
The supervisor's depositions were equally damaging. Sergeant Walsh admitted awareness of complaints, but viewed Mitchell as effective at maintaining order. Lieutenant Mills acknowledged she'd seen the pattern, but considered it enforcement discretion. The city's defense attorney tried one last strategy: qualified immunity. They argued Mitchell's actions, even if wrong, didn't violate clearly established constitutional rights. Federal Judge Patricia Gonzalez rejected that argument in a scathing written opinion. The right to read religious text in public without having that text destroyed by police is so obviously established that no reasonable officer could have believed otherwise. Destroying a Bible and arresting someone for reading it violates clearly established First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment protections. Qualified immunity does not apply. With qualified immunity stripped, the city faced a trial it couldn't win. The evidence was overwhelming, the video undeniable, the pattern documented, and the jury pool in Seattle would be sympathetic to Elijah. Settlement negotiations began in February. Should destroying someone's Bible be treated the same as assault? Why or why not? The settlement was announced in March, 5 months after Officer Mitchell ripped Elijah Thompson's Bible from his hands. The city of Seattle agreed to pay $16 million, one of the largest civil rights settlements in the city's history and the largest ever for religious freedom violations. But the money was only part. The settlement included comprehensive reforms: immediate termination of Officer Craig Mitchell with permanent revocation of law enforcement certification, demotion of Sergeant David Walsh for supervisory failure, suspension without pay for Lieutenant Rebecca Mills, mandatory retirement of Captain Thomas Rivera, 3-year federal consent decree requiring independent monitoring of downtown enforcement, complete ban on quality-of-life enforcement policies targeting people based on appearance, mandatory implicit bias training for all officers with annual recertification, creation of independent oversight board with authority to investigate and recommend discipline, implementation of religious freedom protections prohibiting interference with religious activity in public spaces, quarterly public reporting of all stops by race, location, and outcome, $2 million allocated to community organizations serving homeless populations, and public apology from police chief and mayor acknowledging systemic discrimination. The press conference was held at Pike Street Church. Elijah stood at the podium, hands resting on a newly bound Bible, the restored original, carefully reconstructed by a conservator who'd volunteered hundreds of hours. The restoration had been painstaking, pages repaired with archival techniques, tears mended with Japanese tissue paper, annotations preserved, his mother's handwriting, faded but legible, carefully stabilized, the binding rebuilt using traditional bookbinding methods.
It wasn't perfect. The scars remained, but it was whole again. Elijah's statement was measured and powerful. 5 months ago, I was sitting on a public bench reading scripture when Officer Mitchell decided I didn't belong. He saw my worn jacket and assumed I was homeless. He saw my skin color and assumed I was a problem. He saw my Bible and decided it was disposable. What he destroyed wasn't just pages and binding. It was my connection to my mother, who wrote notes in these margins before she passed. It was my family's spiritual history. It was my faith made tangible." He paused, holding up the restored Bible. "This book teaches forgiveness, and I forgive Officer Mitchell. But forgiveness doesn't mean consequences shouldn't follow. It means I release my anger while insisting on justice." Mitchell lost his career. That's appropriate. The city paid $16 million. That's accountability. The reforms will protect others. That's progress. But the real change comes when we as a society decide that everyone, regardless of how they look, where they sit, or what they read, deserves dignity and constitutional protection. Faith leaders from across the country had traveled to Seattle. They stood united behind Elijah, representing the interfaith coalition that had supported him throughout. Reverend William Barber, a prominent civil rights leader, spoke. What happened to Elijah Thompson is what happens when we allow appearance to determine humanity, when we permit business interests to override constitutional rights, when we tolerate racist enforcement because it keeps certain people out of certain spaces. This settlement is a victory, but the fight for equal treatment in public spaces continues in every city in America. The settlement funds were distributed with deliberate purpose. Elijah received $14 million personally. He immediately donated $2 million to homeless services organizations in Seattle. Another $1 million went to establish a legal defense fund for people experiencing homelessness. The remaining $11 million was placed in trust to support his family and fund his ongoing advocacy work. Officer Craig Mitchell released no statement. He disappeared from public view after termination. His law enforcement career ended at age 32. The supervisors who'd enabled him faced professional consequences, but remained employed. The culture that had protected Mitchell for 6 years was finally forced to change, not through internal accountability, but through external pressure and a $16 million price tag. The restored Bible became a symbol. Elijah donated it to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., where it's now displayed as testimony to both violation and resilience. Visitors read the description: Bible belonging to Elijah Thompson, destroyed by Seattle police officer during unlawful arrest, October 2022. Restored through community effort. Symbol of faith preserved, despite assault on dignity.
The case triggered nationwide conversation about religious freedom in public spaces, the criminalization of homelessness, and racial profiling in commercial areas. The ACLU cited it in briefs across the country. Religious liberty organizations used it as precedent. Civil rights advocates pointed to it as evidence of systemic discrimination requiring federal intervention. Seattle City Council, under intense public pressure, adopted comprehensive de-escalation policies. Annual reports on police harassment became mandatory. Independent oversight was finally empowered with real authority. The reforms that should have existed before Elijah's Bible was destroyed were finally implemented after. But for Elijah, the victory was bittersweet. The money provided security. The reforms prevented future harm. The recognition validated his experience. But his Bible, held together now by restoration rather than natural wear, would never be the same. The pages his mother touched were forever marked by violence. The book that had traveled with him through joy and grief now carried the additional weight of trauma. He continues his outreach work. He still sits on Pike Street benches, though now he carries the restored Bible and a protective case. He still reads Scripture to anyone who needs comfort. He still offers dignity to those society overlooks, but he does it with the knowledge that even faith, even sacred text, even constitutional rights offer no protection when an officer decides your presence doesn't belong. The $16 million said that violation has a price. The reforms said the system must change. But the restored Bible, beautiful and scarred, says some damages can't be fully repaired, only witnessed and remembered. What reforms do you think every police department should implement
to prevent abuses like this. Before we end this story, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light.
Step away from the vehicle. Where'd you steal this Maserati?
I didn't steal anything. I own this car.
Yeah, well, you don't look like it. Let me see some ID.
Congratulations, that's unlawful detention. Hope you like paperwork, because this is going to cost your department a lot.
All right, buddy, hands behind your back.
You really want to add false arrest to the list?
The body cam jolts as the officer storms toward the gas pump. No context, no warning, no justification. Just an officer charging straight at a black man refueling a silver Maserati, as if he's already guilty of something. Soft daylight hits the frame, but nothing about this moment feels soft. What happened during this ordinary stop at a gas station? All because one officer decided a black man couldn't possibly own a high-end car, would ignite a nationwide firestorm. His voice barking with certainty. "Step away from the vehicle! Where did you steal this car?" His voice again, louder. "Show me your hands! Don't get back in that car!" And then the moment that changed everything. The calm man turns, pulls out his legal credentials, and the body cam records every humiliating second of the officer's baseless accusation. That single act of profiling, captured in real time, did more than expose one bad cop. It triggered a civil rights lawsuit, ended a law enforcement career, and cost the department $5 million. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light. But why did the officer double down? And what did he never expect the body cam to reveal about the man he accused of stealing his own car?
Phoenix, Arizona, a Shell station on Camelback Road in Scottsdale's affluent corridor. 11:20 a.m. on a Saturday in July. Temperature 107 degrees. The kind of desert heat where even brief stops require air conditioning recovery. This neighborhood was luxury car territory. Maseratis, Teslas, BMWs, common here, unremarkable. Median household income exceeded $120,000. Expensive vehicles weren't anomalies. They were expected. Jared Williams had stopped for gas on his way home from a morning workout. He was 41 years old, senior partner at Morrison & Klein, one of Phoenix's most prestigious corporate law firms. His specialty was civil rights litigation and constitutional law. He'd graduated from Yale Law School, clerked for a federal appellate judge, and built a reputation as one of the Southwest's most formidable trial attorneys. He drove a 2022 Maserati Quattroporte, silver with black leather interior, purchased new for $98,000. Registration current, insurance active, everything legal, proper, documented. He'd pulled up to Pump 7, swiped his Platinum American Express, selected premium fuel, and begun filling his tank. Standard Saturday routine, nothing unusual. Nothing that should have attracted attention. But Officer Derek Hayes had been watching. Hayes was 29 years old, 4 years with the Scottsdale Police Department. His personnel file contained notations that should have triggered concern. Demonstrates tendency toward assumption-based policing. Multiple complaints regarding pretextual stops. Recommend additional training on implicit bias. Those recommendations had been filed and forgotten, the complaints dismissed, and Hayes continued patrolling with assumptions that were about to destroy his career. He'd spotted Jared from across the parking lot, a black man, mid-40s, expensive car, and in Hayes' mind, shaped by bias he'd never acknowledged and enabled by a department that had never corrected him, those factors combined into immediate suspicion. The body cam shows Hayes' approach. He exited his patrol car with aggressive body language. Shoulders forward, hand near his weapon, stride purposeful and confrontational. No casual observation, no routine check. Immediate assumption of criminality.
Jared was standing beside his Maserati, fuel nozzle in hand, watching the digital display when Hayes's voice cut through the morning air. "Step away from the vehicle. Where did you steal this car?" The body cam captured Jared's reaction perfectly. Not panic, not guilt, just immediate recognition of what was happening, followed by controlled anger. He turned slowly, deliberately, his voice carrying professional authority.
"Excuse me, I own this car. I am Jared Williams. This is my registered vehicle." Hayes stepped closer, his hand still hovering near his service weapon. "Sure you are. Show me your hands. You're not getting back in that car." The body cam shows Jared's jaw tighten. His hands were already visible, one holding the fuel nozzle, one at his side. There was no threat, no furtive movement, no justification for the aggressive commands. "Officer, I'm refueling my vehicle at a gas station. I have done nothing to justify this confrontation. I'm a licensed attorney, and I'm advising you right now that you're engaging in racial profiling without probable cause." Hayes's response revealed everything. "I don't care who you say you are. Step away from the vehicle. Now." Jared set the fuel nozzle back carefully. He reached into his pocket, moving slowly, narrating his actions, and pulled out a leather credential holder. He flipped it open, displaying a gold badge with Federal Bar Association engraved across the top. The body cam captured the badge clearly. It also captured Hayes's face. No recognition, no reconsideration, no acknowledgement that he might be wrong. Jared's list dropped, carrying the weight of someone who just watched their constitutional rights trampled. "That's it, white man. False detention, civil rights violation. You just assaulted a federal lawyer. You will hear from me soon." What would you do if an officer approached you like this with zero evidence? Officer Hayes stared at the badge for 3 seconds. The body cam shows his eyes moving from badge to face and back, processing, calculating, realizing perhaps that this stop wasn't going as assumed. But instead of de-escalating, instead of verifying ownership through registration or his patrol car's computer, instead of acknowledging his mistake, Hayes doubled down. "I need to verify this vehicle isn't stolen. You're going to wait here while I run the plates." Jared's response was immediate and legally precise. "Officer, you've detained me without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. I have provided identification demonstrating I'm a licensed attorney. My vehicle registration is in the glove compartment. The VIN is visible through the windshield. You can verify ownership in 30 seconds. Instead, you're continuing this detention based on nothing but the color of my skin and your assumption that a black man can't own a luxury vehicle." Hayes turned toward his patrol car, keying his radio. "Dispatch, I need a 1028 and 1029 on Arizona plate." Before he could finish, Jared interrupted. "I'm not consenting to any search or extended detention. You have no legal basis to continue this stop. I'm documenting this encounter, and I will be filing a formal complaint and federal lawsuit."
Hayes spun back. "Sir, if you don't comply, I will arrest you for obstruction." "Obstruction of what?" "I've answered your questions. I've provided identification. I've explained vehicle ownership. What am I obstructing?" The body cam captured the moment Hayes realized he'd backed himself into a corner. He'd initiated contact based on assumption. He'd accused Jared of theft without evidence. He'd ignored professional credentials. And now he was threatening arrest to justify actions he couldn't defend. A woman at the adjacent pump had been recording on her cell phone since Hayes's initial approach. Her footage, later obtained by Jared's attorneys, captured what the body cam missed. Several other customers had stopped to watch. Some were recording. Others were whispering, clearly uncomfortable. One elderly white man approached cautiously. "Officer, I've been here the whole time. This gentleman has been calmly putting gas in his car. He hasn't done anything wrong." Hayes turned sharply. "Sir, step back. This is police business." "But you're accusing him of stealing his own car. I saw him pay with a credit card. Don't you think—" "Sir, final warning. Step back or I'll cite you for interference." The man retreated, shaking his head, but kept his phone out, recording. Hayes returned to Jared. "Stay right here. Don't move." He walked to his patrol car and spent 4 minutes running Jared's plate. The body cam audio picked up dispatch response clearly. 1029 shows 2022 Maserati Quattroporte, silver, registered owner Jared Alexander Williams, address matches license, no wants, no warrants, registration current. Hayes sat in his vehicle for another minute after receiving that confirmation. The body cam footage shows him gripping his steering wheel, jaw clenched, clearly frustrated that his assumption had been proven wrong. But he still didn't release Jared. Instead, he exited and approached again. His demeanor shifted from aggressive to defensive. "Sir, I'm going to need to see your driver's license and registration." Jared's voice carried controlled fury. "Officer, you just received confirmation that this vehicle is registered to me. You've already seen my professional identification. You have zero legal justification to continue this detention. Release me immediately, or I will add unlawful detention to the civil rights complaint I'm filing. I'm conducting a routine traffic stop. You pulled into a gas station and accused me of theft without probable cause. This isn't a traffic stop. This is racial profiling, and every second you continue this detention strengthens my case." Hayes's hand moved to his handcuffs. "Sir, place your hands behind your back. You're being detained for failure to comply." The body cam captured Jared's expression. Not fear, but disbelief. "I've complied with every lawful order. What I haven't done is accept your unconstitutional harassment. You cannot arrest someone for refusing to accept rights violations." Hayes reached for Jared's arm. That physical contact, captured on body cam, cell phone video, and the gas station security system, was the moment harassment became assault and battery. The moment a civil rights complaint became a federal lawsuit. The moment Officer Derek Hayes' career effectively ended. Why do you think some officers escalate, even when the truth is right in front of them?
Jared pulled his arm away from Hayes' grasp, not violently, just a natural reaction to unwanted contact. But Hayes interpreted that movement as resistance. "Stop resisting!" "I'm not resisting. I'm refusing to consent to unlawful arrest. There's a difference." Hayes grabbed Jared's wrist with both hands and attempted to force his arm behind his back. The body cam shook violently as the two men struggled. Jared trying to maintain his freedom, Hayes trying to impose control he had no legal authority to exercise. The woman recording shouted from across the lot, "He's not resisting! Leave him alone!" Another voice joined her. "This is police brutality! Someone call 911!" Hayes keyed his radio while still attempting to restrain Jared. "Code 3, I need immediate backup at Shell Station on Camelback. Subject is resisting arrest. Possible 1010. Dispatch responded immediately. "Copy, units responding. Confirm nature of original stop." Hayes didn't answer because he couldn't. There was no original stop, no traffic violation, no reasonable suspicion, just a black man at a gas pump and an officer's assumptions. Jared's voice remained remarkably controlled despite the physical altercation. "Officer Hayes, I have your name from your badge. You are violating Arizona Revised Statute 132508 regarding unlawful imprisonment. You are violating 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 regarding deprivation of rights under color of law. You're creating a record of constitutional violations that will cost your department millions of dollars." The recitation of statute numbers gave Hayes pause. His grip loosened slightly. Someone citing specific legal codes while being detained suggested they weren't bluffing about legal knowledge. 2 additional patrol cars arrived within 90 seconds. 4 more officers stepped out, taking in the scene. Hayes struggling with a well-dressed black man at a gas station, multiple civilians recording, no obvious criminal activity. Sergeant Linda Morrison, a 16-year veteran, approached cautiously. "Hayes, what's the situation?" "Subject was operating a vehicle I suspected was stolen. He's refused to comply and became physically resistant." Morrison looked at Jared.
noting his business casual attire, his calm demeanor despite being restrained, and something else. A leather badge holder that had fallen to the ground during the struggle. She picked it up, examined it, and her expression changed immediately. "Sir, are you an attorney?" Jared's response was directed at Morrison, but intended for the body cams now recording from multiple angles. "I'm Jared Williams, senior partner at Morrison & Klein, specializing in federal civil rights litigation. I stopped to purchase fuel. Officer Hayes approached with zero probable cause, accused me of vehicle theft, despite this being my registered vehicle, ignored my professional credentials, unlawfully detained me, and just committed assault and battery by placing hands on me without legal justification. I have witnesses, video evidence from multiple angles, and will be filing a federal lawsuit seeking damages for constitutional violations."
Morrison's face went pale. She turned to Hayes. "Did you run the plates?" "Yes, they came back clean, registered to him." "Then why is he still detained?" Hayes had no answer. Morrison's voice dropped, tight with controlled anger. "Release him! Now!" Hayes removed his hands. Jared stepped back, straightening his shirt, his eyes moving methodically across the scene, counting officers, noting badge numbers, observing witnesses still recording. Morrison addressed him directly. "Mr. Williams, I apologize for this encounter. You're free to go." Jared's response was calm, measured, devastating. "Sergeant, I don't need information on how to file the complaint. I know the process intimately. I've litigated dozens of civil rights cases against law enforcement agencies. What I need is for you to preserve all body cam footage, dispatch recordings, and security video from this location, because I will be filing a federal lawsuit under Section 1983, and all of that material will be evidence in discovery. You'll be receiving a preservation notice from my office by Monday." Morrison nodded slowly. "Understood, sir." Jared returned to his Maserati, completed fueling, paid for his gas, and drove away. But not before every officer on scene had watched him enter his vehicle with keys, start the engine without any signs of theft, and drive off legally. The cell phone videos began uploading to social media before Jared had even left the parking lot. Within 2 hours, #MaseratiLawyer was trending. By evening, the footage had 4 million views. By Monday morning, it was national news. When do you personally think the officer realized he messed up? Jared Williams walked into his law firm Monday morning carrying a file that would cost Scottsdale PD $5 million. His partners were waiting. They'd seen the viral videos and knew exactly what was coming. The federal lawsuit filed in the District of Arizona was comprehensive and designed not just to compensate Jared, but expose systemic problems. Named defendants: Officer Derek Hayes, Sergeant Linda Morrison, Police Chief Thomas Reynolds, and the City of Scottsdale. Claims included Fourth Amendment violations, 14th Amendment equal protection violations, assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and municipal liability under Monell for failure to train.
But it was the evidence that made city attorneys realize they faced catastrophic exposure. Jared's firm had assembled video from 7 angles: Hayes's body cam, 4 cell phone videos, gas station security, and traffic cameras showing Hayes's initial observation from across the lot. When played in sequence, the footage told an undeniable story. Hayes had spotted Jared, made immediate assumptions, and approached with predetermined accusation. He'd ignored credentials, dismissed explanations, and escalated despite confirmation his suspicions were baseless. The lawsuit revealed something more damaging. Jared's team filed public records requests for Hayes's complete personnel file, all complaints, and departmental communications regarding luxury vehicle enforcement. The personnel file showed a pattern. Over 4 years, Hayes had initiated 127 traffic stops. 89 involved drivers of color, 70%. 34 involved luxury vehicles, 27%. 23 involved both minority drivers and luxury vehicles, 18%. The disparity was statistically significant and legally indefensible. Hayes was stopping minority drivers at rates wildly disproportionate to Scottsdale's demographics. The complaint history was equally damning. Complaint number 1, 2019. Hispanic male driving BMW stopped and questioned about ownership. Alleged racial profiling. Internal Affairs, officer's inquiry within discretionary authority. Dismissed. Complaint number 2, 2020. Black female driving Mercedes asked repeatedly where she worked and how she afforded it. Alleged harassment. Internal Affairs, questions were investigatory, no policy violation. Dismissed. Complaint number 3, 2021. Black male driving Porsche detained 20 minutes while officer verified ownership despite registration being immediately available. Alleged racial profiling. Internal Affairs, duration was reasonable. Dismissed. 3 complaints, 3 minority drivers, 3 luxury vehicles, 3 dismissals. The pattern was documented but never addressed. Then, Jared's attorneys obtained internal department emails exposing systemic encouragement of exactly Hayes's behavior. An email chain from 2020 between supervisors discussed aggressive enforcement in high-end commercial areas, with specific mention of targeting vehicle theft rings by scrutinizing luxury vehicle operators. The thread included a message from a training sergeant. Officers should be particularly attentive to younger drivers and minority drivers operating high-value vehicles, as these may indicate theft or criminal financing.
That email, official department communication, essentially instructed officers to profile minority drivers in luxury cars. It created an environment where Hayes's assumptions weren't aberrations, but applications of informal policy. When media obtained those emails through Jared's records requests, public response was immediate and furious. Civil rights organizations condemned the policy. Community leaders demanded resignations. Protests erupted outside headquarters. The Scottsdale City Council held an emergency session. The mayor, facing intense pressure, promised thorough investigation and accountability. Officer Hayes' deposition, conducted 4 months later, became viral when excerpts were released. Jared's attorney systematically dismantled every justification Hayes offered. Officer Hayes, what specific articulable facts led you to suspect Mr. Williams had stolen the vehicle? The vehicle was expensive, and he didn't seem like someone who would own it. What do you mean he didn't seem like someone who would own it? I mean, it was a judgment call based on my experience. Based on his race? No, based on multiple factors. What factors other than his race? Hayes had no answer. Officer Hayes, you've stopped 23 drivers of color operating luxury vehicles. In how many did you discover the vehicle was actually stolen? I'd have to check records. I can tell you. 0. Your experience has a 0% accuracy rate for the assumption you made about Mr. Williams. The transcripts were devastating. Hayes contradicted himself repeatedly, admitted he never checked registration before approaching, and acknowledged he'd assumed theft based solely on seeing a black man driving it. But the most damaging revelation came when Jared's attorneys obtained Hayes's text messages with other officers. In a group chat from 3 weeks before the incident, Hayes had written, "Another day, another minority in a car they can't afford. Time to do some investigating." A colleague responded, "Gotta love Scottsdale, where the criminals drive better cars than we do." Hayes replied with a laughing emoji. Those text messages, showing conscious bias, premeditation, and departmental culture enabling discrimination, made the case impossible to defend. Do you think the department knew exactly what it was encouraging officers to do?
The city of Scottsdale's defense collapsed within 6 months.
Their attorneys initially argued qualified immunity, that Hayes' actions, even if wrong, didn't violate clearly established rights. But federal case law on pretextual stops based on racial profiling was well established. The text messages destroyed any remaining defense. They proved Hayes' stop wasn't a good faith mistake, but conscious discrimination. They showed departmental culture encouraging such behavior. They demonstrated supervisors knew about these attitudes and did nothing. Settlement negotiations began. The city's initial offer was $500,000 plus policy reforms. Girard rejected it within hours. His counterdemand was $8 million plus comprehensive reforms, including federal monitoring, termination of Officer Hayes and supervisors who dismissed complaints, and creation of independent civilian oversight. Negotiations stretched over 2 months. During that time, 3 more lawsuits were filed by other minority drivers stopped by Hayes. Potential liability was growing exponentially. Political pressure became unsustainable. The city attorney acknowledged they had no path to victory at trial. The final settlement represented one of the largest racial profiling settlements in Arizona history. $5 million paid to Girard Williams for constitutional violations, emotional distress, and punitive damages. $750,000 allocated to 3 other verified victims of Hayes' discriminatory stops. Immediate termination of Officer Derek Hayes with permanent POST certification revocation. Forced resignation of 2 supervisors who dismissed complaints without proper investigation. 3-year federal consent decree requiring independent monitoring of all traffic stops involving luxury vehicles. Mandatory implicit bias training for all officers with annual recertification. Implementation of early warning system to flag officers with disproportionate stop patterns. Creation of independent civilian review board with authority to investigate and recommend discipline. Prohibition on using vehicle value or driver demographics as stop factors without additional criminal indicators. Quarterly public reporting of traffic stop data by officer, race, vehicle type, and outcome. The total package exceeded $7 million when accounting for monitoring costs and reform implementation. Officer Derek Hayes was escorted from the station the day settlement was announced. His POST certification permanently revoked. His name entered the National Decertification Database. His law enforcement career ended at age 29.
He offered no apology, made no statement. His attorney released brief comment. Officer Hayes regrets the situation, but maintains he acted based on his training. The video evidence, text messages, and deposition transcripts told a different story. Supervisors who dismissed complaints also faced consequences. Lieutenant Marcus Green was demoted to patrol officer. Captain Jennifer Walsh took early retirement rather than face termination, but individual accountability was only part. The consent decree mandated systemic changes reshaping how Scottsdale PD conducted traffic enforcement. Every stop involving vehicles valued over $50,000 now required documentation of specific criminal indicators beyond vehicle value. Officers with more than 3 racial profiling complaints faced automatic review. Bodycam footage from all luxury vehicle stops would be audited monthly by independent reviewers. At the settlement press conference, Jared delivered a statement capturing both personal experience and broader implications. I'm a senior partner at a major law firm. I have 3 Ivy League degrees. I've argued before federal courts. I built a career on understanding constitutional rights. And yet none of that protected me when Officer Hayes decided a black man couldn't possibly own a Maserati. None of my credentials, professional status, or knowledge prevented him from detaining me, assaulting me, and humiliating me in public. If this can happen to me, someone with resources, legal expertise, and public platform, imagine what happens to people without those advantages. This settlement is justice for me, but it's also a message. Racial profiling has consequences. Departments that enable discrimination will pay.
Officers who act on bias will lose their careers, and victims will find accountability, even when the system tries to protect those who violated their rights. Community leaders praised the settlement while acknowledging ongoing challenges. The NAACP representative stated, "This victory came because Jared had video evidence, legal expertise, and public support. But how many others are profiled every day without those resources?" The reforms are important, but real change requires departments to address the bias that makes these reforms necessary. What change do you think would actually prevent cases like this? Jared Williams returned to his law practice, but the experience fundamentally changed his perspective. He'd spent years litigating civil rights cases, representing clients who'd been profiled, detained, discriminated against. He'd understood intellectually what they experienced, but until that July morning, he hadn't truly felt it. The humiliation of being accused of theft while refueling your own car. The frustration of showing credentials immediately dismissed. The fear when an officer's hand moves toward their weapon. The helplessness of knowing you're being violated but having no power to stop it in the moment. The rage at being treated like a criminal for existing while black. He still drives the Maserati, but now he carries multiple forms of identification. He keeps his phone accessible to record encounters. He's hyper-aware of how police perceive him, and he experiences anxiety every time he sees police nearby. The $5 million settlement provided compensation. The reforms created accountability. Hayes' termination delivered justice, but none of it erases the fundamental truth Jared learned that day. In America, for black people, authority is never automatic. Respect must be demanded, rights must be defended, and justice must be fought for. The body cam replays in silence. Jared simply fueling his own car, then Hayes storming in. The assumption, the accusation, the violation, and finally, the still frame of Hayes' panicked face after learning Jared was a federal lawyer. Because to some officers, authority is automatic, but respect, rights, and justice, those must be fought for. Before we go, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light.
Ma'am, I smell marijuana. That gives me probable cause to search your vehicle. Step out now.
I haven't been smoking, officer. You do not have probable cause. I advise you to check your body cam before you violate my Fourth Amendment rights.
Get out. You think you're smart? I told you what I smell.
What happened to this woman during a simple traffic stop? All because one officer claimed he smelled marijuana would not only spark national outrage, but ignite a lawsuit that shook an entire police department. Quick flashes, his voice barking probable cause, her voice steady, unbreakable. "You are violating my rights." A hard cut to the body cam catching every second. What you're about to see is the exact moment a police officer crossed a constitutional line, a moment that would explode across social media, dominate headlines for weeks, and force the city to pay $12 million after the truth was exposed. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light. But why was this officer so desperate to search her car? And what didn't he expect the body cam to capture? Riverside County, California. Magnolia Avenue on a Tuesday afternoon in September. Temperature 76 degrees, light traffic, clear visibility. A well-maintained suburban street where nothing unusual should happen, where a routine drive home from work should be exactly that. Routine. Officer Ryan Whitmore had been with the Riverside Police Department for 4 years. His personnel file contained notations that supervisors had chosen to ignore, aggressive enforcement patterns, multiple complaints regarding traffic stops, recommend additional training on de-escalation and probable cause standards. Those recommendations were never implemented. The complaints were never seriously investigated. And on this particular Tuesday, that institutional failure was about to cost the city $12 million. Whitmore was running routine patrol when he spotted a silver Mercedes sedan. The driver was a black woman, professionally dressed, obeying all traffic laws. Speed limit was 45.
She was doing 43. She signaled every lane change. She maintained proper following distance. There was no legitimate traffic violation, no equipment malfunction, no erratic driving. But Officer Whitmore had already decided what this stop was about, and what he said next would set in motion a chain of events that would expose years of unconstitutional policing. Do you think some officers already know what they're going to do before they even reach the window?
The body cam captured everything in soft daylight. Crystal clear audio and video. No technical malfunctions, no gaps in recording. Just undeniable documentation of what happened next. Ma'am, I smell marijuana. That gives me probable cause to search your vehicle. Step out now. Angela's hands remained on the steering wheel. Her expression didn't change. No panic, no guilt, just immediate recognition of what was happening. She'd heard stories about this tactic. Fabricated probable cause, pretextual searches, officers using subjective claims about odors to justify searches they had no legal basis to conduct. She looked directly at the body cam mounted on Whitmore's chest, then met his eyes. Her voice was calm, measured, carrying the professional authority of someone who understood constitutional law. I haven't been smoking, officer. You do not have probable cause. I advise you to check your body cam before you violate my Fourth Amendment rights. The body cam captured Whitmore's face clearly. No surprise, no reconsideration, just anger at being challenged. His hand moved to the door handle. Get out. You think you're smart? I told you what I smell. He yanked the door open before Angela could respond. She remained seated for a moment, her voice still controlled, still addressing both the officer and the camera that was recording everything. There is nothing in this car. This illegal search is being recorded. Whitmore leaned into the doorframe, his face inches from Angela's, his voice rising. We'll see about that. Get the hell out. The body cam audio picked up every word, every threat, every violation of procedure. Whitmore had skipped every standard protocol. He hadn't asked for license and registration, hadn't explained the reason for the stop, hadn't requested permission to search, hadn't followed any of the steps that distinguish lawful policing from constitutional violation. Angela stepped out of the vehicle slowly, deliberately, maintaining her composure even as her rights were being trampled. She stood beside her car, hands visible, making no threatening movements, and watched as Officer Whitmore prepared to conduct a search based on probable cause that didn't exist. If the first thing a cop says is a lie, how would you react?
Officer Whitmore keyed his radio, his voice carrying false authority. Dispatch 4 Adam 7, conducting vehicle search at Magnolia and Riverside Drive. Strong odor of marijuana detected upon approach. That radio transmission, time-stamped at 2:34 p.m., would later become critical evidence, because the body cam footage recording simultaneously told a completely different story. The timestamp showed Whitmore standing beside Angela's vehicle, the driver's door open, positioned at least 5 feet from the interior. The wind direction, captured by trees swaying in the background, was blowing from the vehicle toward the street, away from his position. His body language showed no physical reaction to any odor, no wrinkling of the nose, no leaning closer to investigate, no hand gestures suggesting olfactory stimulus. He was creating an official record of probable cause that video evidence would prove was fabricated. Angela remained standing on the curb, her hands clasped in front of her, her voice steady. Officer, you're creating a false record. I don't smoke marijuana. I never have. There is no odor because there is no marijuana in my vehicle. Whitmore ignored her and began his search. He started with the center console, pulling out items carelessly, sunglasses, registration papers, a phone charging cable, and tossing them onto the passenger seat. His movements were aggressive, rushed, the actions of someone searching with predetermined expectation rather than methodical investigation. The glove compartment yielded nothing but the owner's manual and insurance documents. The door pockets contained nothing but a reusable water bottle and some napkins. The back seat was empty except for a gym bag containing workout clothes and a pair of running shoes. Angela watched in silence for 30 seconds, then addressed the body cam directly, her voice carrying the measured tone of someone documenting evidence.
Officer Whitmore claimed to smell marijuana before my windows were even fully lowered. He's now searching my vehicle without consent and without actual probable cause. Every compartment he's opening is empty. Every claim he's made is false. This is being recorded from multiple angles. That last statement would prove prophetic, because Angela's vehicle was equipped with a dash cam, a small camera mounted behind her rearview mirror that she'd installed after reading about false arrests and fabricated traffic stops. That camera was recording everything from a different angle, capturing details the Bodycam couldn't see. Whitmore moved to the trunk. He opened Angela's briefcase and rifled through legal documents, confidential client files that he had no authority to examine. He unzipped the gym bag and dumped its contents onto the trunk floor. He even checked the spare tire compartment, pulling up the mat and examining the space beneath. 15 minutes had passed. 15 minutes of invasive searching. And the result? Absolutely nothing. No marijuana, no drug paraphernalia, no pills in unmarked bottles, no suspicious substances, no evidence of any illegal activity whatsoever. But Officer Whitmore wasn't done, because admitting he'd found nothing meant admitting his probable cause was fabricated, and his ego wouldn't allow it. Your nervousness tells me you're hiding something. People who have nothing to hide don't act this way. Angela's response was immediate and pointed. I'm not nervous, officer. I'm angry. There's a difference. I'm angry that you fabricated probable cause. I'm angry that you're violating my constitutional rights. And I'm angry that you're wasting my time searching for something that doesn't exist. Whitmore's jaw tightened. He returned to the driver's area and searched again, the same compartments he'd already checked, looking for something, anything that could justify what he'd already done. The body cam showed his growing frustration. His movements became more erratic, his breathing elevated. He was searching not to find contraband, but to avoid the consequences of admitting he'd initiated an illegal search based on a lie. Should citizens be required to step out when the reason is clearly fake?
23 minutes had passed since Officer Whitmore initiated the traffic stop. 23 minutes of Angela standing on a public sidewalk in broad daylight while her vehicle was ransacked. 23 minutes of humiliation, violation, and constitutional abuse, all captured on multiple cameras. Whitmore pulled everything from Angela's vehicle. The contents of her center console were scattered across the passenger seat. Her gym bag's contents were strewn across the trunk. Her briefcase was open, confidential legal documents exposed to the elements. Her registration and insurance papers were crumpled on the dashboard. The body cam captured the scene in undeniable detail. Every compartment empty, every search yielding nothing, every claim about marijuana odor proven false by the complete absence of any contraband. But instead of acknowledging his mistake, instead of apologizing and allowing Angela to leave, Whitmore doubled down. The smell was definitely present when I approached. My training allows me to detect marijuana odor at significant distances. Your defensive attitude and refusal to cooperate indicate consciousness of guilt. Every statement was false. The body cam footage, reviewed later by multiple experts, showed no indication of odor detection. Whitmore's approach showed no hesitation, no investigation of smell, no confirmation of his claimed sensory perception. He'd stated his conclusion before any investigation occurred, and Angela's behavior showed no signs of guilt, only justified anger at rights violations. She'd cooperated completely, stepping out when ordered, not interfering with the search, simply documenting the violation verbally for the recording. A passing driver slowed, his window lowering. His voice carried concern. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help?" Angela turned toward him. "I'm being subjected to an illegal search based on fabricated probable cause. If you have a phone, please record this." Whitmore moved quickly toward the passing vehicle. "Sir, keep moving. This is official police business." The driver hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but eventually drove on. His departure wasn't retreat, it was strategic, because he immediately pulled over a block away and began recording on his cell phone, capturing the broader scene that the body cam's limited field of view couldn't document. Whitmore returned to Angela's vehicle for a third search of compartments he'd already searched twice.
This time he removed the floor mats, checked under the seats with his flashlight, even examined the air vents. His determination to find something, anything, was palpable. Angela addressed the body cam again. Officer Whitmore has now searched my vehicle 3 separate times. He has found nothing because there is nothing to find. He is continuing this detention despite complete absence of evidence. This is harassment, this is racial profiling, and this is unconstitutional. At this point, is this just racism or abuse of power or both?
What Angela didn't know, when Officer Whitmore hoped would never be discovered, was that she wasn't his first victim. She was simply the first with the resources, knowledge, and documentation to fight back effectively. The Riverside Police Department's Internal Affairs Division had files on Officer Whitmore dating back 3 years, files that supervisors had reviewed and dismissed, files that documented a pattern so clear it should have triggered immediate investigation and discipline. Complaint number 1, filed March 2020. Marcus Johnson, black male, age 29, stopped for marijuana odor. Vehicle searched. Nothing found. Complaint alleged racial profiling and fabricated probable cause. Internal Affairs finding? Officer detected odor in good faith. No evidence of discriminatory intent. Complaint dismissed. Complaint number 2, filed August 2020. Keisha Williams, black female, age 34, stopped for marijuana odor. Vehicle searched. Nothing found. Complaint alleged harassment and rights violation. Internal Affairs finding? Officer's sensory perception cannot be objectively disproved. Subject's aggressive demeanor justified thorough search. Complaint dismissed. Complaint number 3, filed January 2021. David Chen, Asian male, age 41, stopped for marijuana odor. Vehicle searched. Small amount of marijuana found in center console. Arrest made. No complaint filed. Complaint number 4, filed June 2021. Tamara Brooks, black female, age 27, stopped for marijuana odor. Vehicle searched. Nothing found. Subject detained for 35 minutes. Complaint alleged excessive detention and discriminatory targeting. Internal Affairs finding? Traffic stop duration was within acceptable parameters. No evidence of bias. Complaint dismissed. 5 complaints in less than 2 years. 4 involving drivers of color. 4 searches finding nothing. 0 disciplinary action taken. But the pattern extended beyond complaints. A data analyst reviewing traffic stop records would later discover that Officer Whitmore had conducted 93 traffic stops during his 4-year tenure. Of those 93 stops, 67 involved drivers of color, 72%. 48 involved claims of marijuana odor, 52%. 43 resulted in vehicle searches, 46%. 6 resulted in actual marijuana seizure, 14% success rate on searches. The numbers told an undeniable story. Whitmore was targeting minority drivers at rates wildly disproportionate to their representation in Riverside County. He was claiming marijuana odor in more than half his stops, a rate 400% higher than department average. And his searches were yielding contraband in only 14% of cases, suggesting his probable cause determinations were either wildly inaccurate or deliberately fabricated. But supervisors had ignored these statistics. They'd dismissed complaints. They'd filed away concerns. They'd prioritized protecting an officer over protecting constitutional rights. And Angela Hayes was about to make that institutional failure very expensive. Should the "I smelled marijuana" still be legal probable cause in 2025?
The moment Angela's attorney, Marcus Chen, reviewed the body cam footage, he knew this case was different. He'd represented dozens of clients in traffic stop disputes. Most came down to conflicting accounts, the officer's word against the driver's word, with courts typically deferring to law enforcement. But this case had something most didn't: irrefutable video evidence of fabrication. Chen played the footage frame by frame, noting critical details. At timestamp 2:34:17, the moment Whitmore claimed to have detected marijuana odor, the body cam showed him standing beside the vehicle, windows only partially lowered,
positioned at an angle where airflow from the interior would not have reached his position. At timestamp 2:34:22, when Whitmore radioed dispatch claiming strong odor of marijuana detected upon approach, the body cam showed him still standing outside the vehicle, door closed, no physical proximity to the interior where any odor would have originated. At timestamp 2:34:45, when Whitmore ordered Angela out of the vehicle, the body cam's audio pickup showed ambient street noise, traffic sounds, and wind, but no evidence of Whitmore taking any action to confirm or investigate the smell he claimed to have detected. Chen hired Dr. Patricia Gomez, a forensic video analyst with expertise in police body cam interpretation. Her analysis was devastating. Officer Whitmore shows zero physiological indicators of odor detection. When humans detect strong odors, especially unexpected ones, we exhibit involuntary responses. Nasal flare, facial expression change, slight recoil or orientation toward the source. Officer Whitmore shows none of these indicators. His approach is linear, his expression unchanged, his body language consistent with predetermined action rather than reactive investigation. Chen also hired Dr. James Morrison, an atmospheric scientist, to analyze the environmental conditions. His report was equally damning. Based on wind direction, air temperature, vehicle ventilation patterns, and officer positioning captured in the body cam footage, any odor emanating from the vehicle interior would have dispersed away from Officer Whitmore's position. For him to have detected marijuana odor under these conditions would have required concentration levels indicating active smoking, which body cam footage clearly shows was not occurring. But the most devastating evidence came from comparing timestamps. Whitmore claimed he smelled marijuana upon approach, but the body cam showed he'd decided to search the vehicle before Angela had even fully lowered her windows. His probable cause claim came before any opportunity to detect odor existed. He was lying. The body cam proved it. And that lie was about to cost him everything. Chen filed a comprehensive motion to suppress evidence in the citation case Whitmore had issued Angela for unsafe lane change, a violation the dashcam clearly disproved. But more importantly, he filed a federal civil rights lawsuit that would expose the entire pattern. The lawsuit included video comparison evidence. Chen assembled footage from 3 different Whitmore stops involving marijuana odor claims. When played side by side, the pattern was undeniable. Identical body language, identical verbal claims, identical search procedures, and in 2 of the 3 cases, identical results. Nothing found. If body cams didn't exist, what do you think would have happened to a woman like her?
The federal lawsuit filed in the Central District of California was a masterclass in civil rights litigation. Attorney Marcus Chen had assembled evidence that made the case virtually impossible to defend. The named defendants were Officer Ryan Whitmore, individual capacity, Sergeant James Torres, supervisory failure, Police Chief David Martinez, administrative liability, and the City of Riverside, municipal liability under Monell Doctrine. The claims included violation of Fourth Amendment rights, unreasonable search and seizure, violation of 14th Amendment rights, equal protection or racial discrimination, false arrest and unlawful detention, intentional infliction of emotional distress, municipal liability for failure to train, supervise, and discipline, pattern and practice of civil rights violations. But it was the evidence section that made the city's attorneys realize they were facing catastrophic liability. Exhibit A, body cam footage showing fabricated probable cause. Exhibit B, Angela's dash cam showing the same encounter from different angle. Exhibit C, cell phone video from passing motorist showing duration of stop. Exhibit D, traffic stop data showing Whitmore's discriminatory patterns. Exhibit E, internal affairs files showing dismissed complaints. Exhibit F, expert testimony proving odor detection was impossible under the conditions. Exhibit G, comparative video analysis showing pattern across multiple stops. The city's initial defense strategy centered on qualified immunity, arguing that even if Whitmore's actions were wrong, they didn't violate clearly established constitutional rights.
But federal case law on pretextual stops and fabricated probable cause was well established. Multiple circuit courts had ruled that officers cannot claim immunity when inventing facts to justify searches. Depositions began 6 months after filing. Whitmore's deposition lasted 8 hours and destroyed any remaining defense. Under oath, he couldn't explain the discrepancies between his claims and video evidence. He couldn't articulate what marijuana smell was like or how he'd detected it under the documented conditions. He changed his story multiple times, first claiming he smelled it from 10 feet away, then revising to 5 feet, then claiming he'd smelled it through the window before Angela lowered it. His attorney tried damage control. Officer Whitmore believed in good faith that he detected marijuana odor based on his training and experience. Chen demolished that claim. Officer Whitmore, you've testified that you completed drug recognition training in 2019, is that correct? Yes. And that training taught you that marijuana odor detection requires proximity, correct? Yes. The body cam shows you standing 6 feet from the vehicle when you made your claim. That contradicts your training, doesn't it? The smell was strong enough to detect from 6 feet away through partially open windows on a windy day? Silence. Officer Whitmore, in your 4-year career, you've claimed to detect marijuana odor in 48 separate traffic stops, correct? If that's what the records show. And in 42 of those stops, your searches found no marijuana. That's an 88% false positive rate. How do you explain that? Sometimes people hide it. Sometimes they dispose of it before I search. Or sometimes, Officer Whitmore, you fabricate probable cause to conduct searches you have no legal justification for. The deposition transcripts became public record. Media outlets ran segments highlighting the contradictions. Community organizations organized protests outside Riverside Police Headquarters. The pressure intensified daily. Then the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. 3 more victims, all black drivers, all stopped by Whitmore, all searched based on marijuana odor claims, all findings nothing, came forward with their own dashcam footage and documentation. The case was no longer about one illegal stop. It was about systematic constitutional violations spanning years. A federal judge reviewed the evidence and issued a preliminary ruling that sent shockwaves through the department. The evidence demonstrates a pattern of Fourth Amendment violations based on fabricated probable cause. This court finds sufficient basis to support claims of both individual misconduct and municipal liability for failure to address documented patterns of discrimination. The city's attorneys calculated potential liability if the case went to trial. Between Angela's case and the 3 additional plaintiffs, they were facing exposure exceeding $30 million. A jury that saw the video evidence would likely award punitive damages. The department would be subject to federal monitoring. The political fallout would be devastating. Settlement negotiations began in earnest. Should officers like this ever be allowed back into law enforcement?
Angela Hayes returned to her corporate law practice, but the experience changed her fundamentally. She still drives the same silver Mercedes, but now she tenses every time she sees police lights. She still wears professional attire, but she's hyper-aware of how others perceive her. She still knows her rights intellectually, but she understands viscerally how little those rights meant when Officer Whitmore decided to violate them. The $12 million settlement made headlines. The reforms provided some accountability, but Angela will never fully recover from that September afternoon when she was criminalized for doing nothing more than driving while black. She's channeled her experience into advocacy. She serves on the Civilian Oversight Board created by the Consent Decree. She speaks at law schools about civil rights litigation. She mentors young attorneys interested in police accountability work. She's transformed her victimization into a platform for change. The body cam footage from her stop is now used in police training academies nationwide as an example of what not to do. It appears in law school civil rights courses. It's cited in appellate briefs arguing against qualified immunity. It's become a teaching tool that's likely prevented similar violations. But Angela knows the work isn't finished.
Riverside was forced to change because she had resources and documentation. But there are hundreds of cities where officers still use fabricated probable cause to target minority drivers. There are departments where complaints are still dismissed without investigation. There are victims who don't have the ability to fight back. Officer Ryan Whitmore's career ended. His reputation was destroyed. His name became synonymous with racial profiling and abuse of power. But he never apologized, never acknowledged wrongdoing, never expressed remorse for the dozens of people whose rights he violated. The $12 million settlement delivered justice, financial compensation for constitutional violations. The reforms changed practices, real accountability measures that didn't exist before. The oversight provided transparency, civilian review that didn't exist before. But none of it erases what Angela experienced. None of it undoes the humiliation. None of it removes the trauma that surfaces every time she sees flashing lights. Because this case wasn't just about one fabricated smell of marijuana during one traffic stop. It was about a system that enabled Officer Whitmore for 4 years, a system that dismissed 12 separate complaints from people who didn't have resources to fight back, a system that required viral video and $12 million in damages before delivering basic accountability. She did everything right, stayed calm, knew her rights, spoke clearly, and still, she was targeted. This wasn't a smell. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a lie caught on camera. A lie that cost Officer Whitmore his career. A lie that cost the city $12 million. A lie that exposed systematic civil rights violations spanning years. The body cam doesn't lie. The dash cam doesn't lie. The pattern doesn't lie. And the $12 million settlement stands as proof. When officers fabricate probable cause to target people based on race, when departments ignore complaints and enable abuse, when systems prioritize protecting officers over protecting rights, there will be consequences. Angela's case represents victory, but it also represents failure. Failure that it took this long, cost this much, and required this level of proof before anyone took action. The real question isn't whether the settlement was large enough. The question is how we prevent the next Angela Hayes, the next Ryan Whitmore, and the next department that looks away while constitutional rights are systematically violated.